So I've recently been experimenting with more advanced ways to use PDF generation in Lucee CFML, specifically with relation to InVision app. And one idea that I had was to be able to take the data that we produce in an interactive prototype, which includes screens and then hotspots, which link to other screens within the prototype, take that information and somehow codify it or generate it, reproduce it as an interactive PDF, because we could theoretically just take these hotspots, which link to other screens, so it's very limited in terms of the type of interaction we can mimic. But if we think about each screen being embedded as a page within a PDF, then each hotspot could theoretically be an anchor tag that just links to another page within that PDF. So to explore this idea, I hard-coded this JSON payload, which uses just this simple step 1 through 5 images that I've used often for testing, and some hotspots that, again, all of this is just hard-coded. They're just linking to IDs based on the JSON data here. So now what I've done is I've read in that JSON data, and I want to start to generate a PDF based on those interactions. Now, all of the pages within a PDF have to be the same size unless you generate individual pages as PDFs, which I looked at in a previous post. So what I'm going to do is loop over the screens, get the max width and height, and then use that to generate the PDF in which all pages essentially can accommodate the largest screen. Now, in this particular demo, all the screens are the same size, so it doesn't really matter, but I'm just trying to think through how this might work in a more production-like setting. Now, the hard part about this is that if we look at the data here, this width and height of the screens is pixel data, and the X, Y, and width and height of the hotspots, again, is all pixel data. However, the page width and the page height use unit inches. There is no pixel unit. Well, technically there is, it just doesn't work very well. So what I need to try and do is translate the pixels of the images into the inches for the screen, and then you can see I'm also going to build in some wiggle room because a lot of this is just fuzzy here, and I'm kind of just using trial and error to figure out what works well. And then you can see I'm using a margin top and a margin bottom of 0, again to allow for some more wiggle room. The margin top I actually build into the content, and then the margin bottom I leave open so that the difference between the page height and the screen height can sort of naturally create a margin, but also give us some fuzzy math here. Now, the real trick is going to be what happens in the actual content. That's where we're going to take the screens and generate the pages that happen within this PDF. So let's look at this content CFM, which I broke out just for a little bit better readability. So what you can see is that I have a single body here, and I have my loop where I'm looping over the screens, and at the top of each screen I'm using a named anchor tag. Now this is going to be the target of each hotspot or link within each page. They're all going to link to screen and then the ID of that screen. I'm using an H2, which you'll actually see that I am basically hiding with white text and a height 0. But I'm using that because if we look back at the CFDocument tag, I'm including this HTML bookmark. The HTML bookmark generates bookmarks within the PDF based on the title tag. So we're using that to generate the outlines, but then we're also using it to build in that top margin. Remember, because the top margin I have on the document is 0, so now I need to build in the top margin. The reason I'm doing that within the document and not within the page is because I want the anchor link to be above that top margin, otherwise the document jumps down to weird places. Now, the screen itself is being wrapped in a table, again going old school. CFDocument doesn't really support really modern CSS, and this was the easiest way that I could figure out how to size and center the screen within the page. The image is then using a local URL with the pixel-based dimensions, and then the hotspots, and here's where it gets more interesting. You can see the hotspots are anchor tags, linked to anchor tags using, again, that screen and ID, which will link to this value on another particular page within the PDF. And then these are positioned absolutely within the within the TD element, which is positioned relatively, right? So these are going to be positioned relative to this wrapper, which means they'll be able to stack above the image because they're below the image in terms of the DOM structure. And then I'm just going to add a document item page break. Now, my first instinct was originally to inside of each item create a CFDocument section so that I wouldn't have to insert page breaks, but it turns out that anchor tags don't work across sections, which is why all of the screens and all of the anchor tags have to exist within a single body. Now, with all of that, if we now jump over here, let's just refresh to make sure we have the updated PDF, and let's refresh here, and here is my generated PDF. And if I scroll down, you can see that I have each image embedded on a particular page within the PDF, and here are my hotspots outlined in a dash blue, and here's where the magic happens. As I start to click, you can see that I am jumping through the pages of the PDF in a completely interactive manner. So again, I can only rely on click here because anchor is the only the only navigation element that we have available in the PDF as far as I understand. We certainly can't use any JavaScript, not in the Flying Saucer rendering engine. But yo, that's kind of player, I think. I'm a little bit giddy about that. Obviously, it's going to be a much, much lower fidelity experience, but for some degree of our flat prototypes, like, that's kind of awesome. Being able to embed and encode this kind of interaction within the PDF, I feel like someone's going to like that. Anyway, just a fun experiment. Definitely a lot of food for thought here, and definitely some more that I'll be noodling on this topic.